Season 1 of Glee introduces Will Schuester, the Spanish teacher at McKinley High School. Will was a member of the school's Glee club when he was a teenager, and is excited to take over as its new director when the current head Sandy Ryerson is fired for inappropriate sexual conduct. Sylvester is the head of McKinley High's prestigious Cheerios cheerleading squad, and growing bitter over Principal Figgins diverting some of her funding to the Glee club, she convinces him to disband the entire organization if Will can't lead them to victory at the year-end regionals competition. Will renames the Glee club to New Directions and welcomes a small group of outcasts as its first members, including the diva Mercedes Jones, the paraplegic Artie Abrams, the introverted Tina Cohen-Chang, the closeted and relentlessly bullied Kurt Hummel, and the prodigious Rachel Berry, whose ambition and pridefulness makes her a social pariah amongst her classmates. Will realizes that New Directions will fail if they can't convince some of the more popular students to join. When Will hears the star quarterback Finn Hudson singing in the shower, Mr. Shu realizes that the kid is a natural talent. Finn first refuses to join the Glee club, but Will plants marijuana in his locker to manipulate him into joining or risk ruining his football career. While singing together, Rachel develops a crush on Finn, despite him dating Quinn Fabray, the head cheerleader of the Cheerios and the captain of the school's celibacy club. Rachel encourages Finn to be proud of his musical talents and not feel ashamed of them, though this strains the friendship of Finn and his teammate and best friend Puck, the worst bully at school. Finn ultimately realizes that he can pursue sports and music, apologizing to the outcast of New Directions for his history of bullying them. Will's marriage to his wife Terry has grown strained as they struggle with infertility and finances. Despite Will's passion for teaching, Terry wants him to pursue a higher paying career to provide for his family. When Terry gets pregnant, Will contemplates getting an accounting job, but the encouragement of school guidance counselor Emma and watching the Glee club perform a rousing rendition of Don't Stop Believing convinces him to continue pursuing his true passion. Terry discovers that she is actually experiencing a hysterical pregnancy, meaning she is not actually pregnant, but lies to Will, manipulating him to keep their marriage intact. This complicates Will's burgeoning feelings for Emma. Realizing they can never be together, Emma instead gets engaged to football coach Ken Tanaka. Sue grows more frustrated as the Glee club grows in popularity, further distracting from the success of the Cheerios. And so when the cheerleaders Quinn, Santana, and Brittany join New Directions, Sue tasks them with taking down the Glee club from the inside. Sue also helps the disgraced Sandy get rehired as the school's new art director. When a bitter Rachel is passed over for a solo, she quits the Glee club to instead star in Sandy's production of Cabaret. Quinn discovers that she is pregnant after having a secret affair with Puck, the best friend of her boyfriend Finn. Believing Puck to be an unfit father with no means of supporting a family, Quinn lies to Finn, tricking him into believing that she had miraculously gotten pregnant after an embarrassing makeout session in a hot tub. Terry comes up with a plot to adopt Quinn's baby and claim it as her own to further trick Will. When the school finds out that Quinn is pregnant, in addition to being a part of the outcast New Directions group, she and Finn suddenly become bullied pariahs by their classmates. Sue kicks Quinn out of Cheerios, while Quinn's parents are furious over the pregnancy revelation and kick her out of their home, prompting her to move in with Finn and his mother. The paraplegic Artie's position in New Directions is threatened when the school refuses to pay for a handicap-accessible bus. But the Glee club rallies around Artie for support by holding a fundraiser, and even Sue donates money to make the school more handicap-accessible, inspired by her relationship with her sister, who has Down syndrome. This also leads to Sue replacing Quinn in Cheerios with Becky, a student with Down syndrome who becomes Sue's assistant and closest ally. Kurt seeks the help of Finn to join the football team as a kicker to impress his father Bert and further hide his sexuality. But after helping the team win a match with some unorthodox dance moves, a newly confident Kurt finally comes out to his father, who accepts and loves his son unconditionally. Puck is inspired by Kurt's success on the football field, and wanting to prove to Quinn that he can become a better person and father for their child, joins the Glee club alongside his friend and teammate Mike Chang. Kurt then develops unrequited feelings for Finn, and in an effort to get closer to him, sets up Bert with Finn's mother Carol. Bert quickly falls in love with Carol and forges a strong bond with Finn over their shared interest in sports, though affirms to Kurt that he will always put him first. With Rachel out of the Glee Club, Will becomes desperate to replace her. He learns that his former classmate and Glee Club member April Rhodes never actually graduated high school and is now a failed Broadway star and alcoholic, and so Will uses a loophole to re-enroll her in high school and rejoin the Glee Club. April performs drunk at the Glee Club invitationals, but still puts on an incredible show that gives her the adoration of the crowd that she always wanted. She leaves New Direction satisfied by her performance and is replaced by Rachel, who quits Cabaret to return to where she truly belongs. April then becomes the mistress of an older wealthy man, earning a large payout after his death. She buys an auditorium for the Glee Club, giving them their own permanent home, and then departs to pursue her Broadway dreams once again. In the hopes of earning the Glee Club popularity in the school, Rachel convinces a local mattress store to cast New Directions members in a commercial. Unfortunately, this paid arrangement violates the rules of the upcoming sectionals competition. Will decides to take the blame, forcing him to step down as director and have the club perform without his leadership. In turn, Emma postpones her wedding to accompany New Directions in Will's place. Finn discovers the truth about Quinn's pregnancy, beating up Puck for his betrayal, and emotionally quitting the club on the eve of sectionals. Upon arriving at the competition, New Directions discovers that Sue has given the rival clubs their set list, meaning they will need to come up with new musical performances on the spot. Will gives an inspiring speech to Finn, convincing him to rejoin New Directions and rally them to victory. In the aftermath, Will is reinstated as Glee Club director, and after finding out about Terry's fake pregnancy, he ends his marriage. Ken ends his own engagement to Emma, allowing her and Will to finally profess their true feelings to each other. Unfortunately, Emma is a virgin with limited relationship history, while Will is coming out of a marriage to his high school sweetheart, creating a lot of complicated and conflicting emotions. And so, Emma instead begins dating her dentist, Carl Howell. Sue is suspended from school for trying to sabotage the Glee Club, but then drugs Principal Figgins and blackmails him with compromising photos to manipulate her way back. With his relationship with Quinn over, Finn finally decides to pursue his romantic feelings for Rachel. Unfortunately, Rachel has now become smitten with Jesse St. James, the lead singer of New Direction's rival Glee Club, Vocal Adrenaline. Bitter over this, Finn seeks comfort in Santana and loses his virginity to her. Rachel then discovers that Jesse had only begun to date her as a ruse, orchestrated by Vocal Adrenaline's director Shelby Corcoran, though he had grown to develop genuine feelings for her. In an even bigger revelation, Rachel learns that Shelby is in fact her biological mother. As the season comes to a close, New Directions prepares for the regionals competition that will determine their fate as a club. Unfortunately, they discover that Sylvester is one of the judges, seemingly ruining their chances of winning. Before their big performance, Finn professes his continued love for Rachel, which she reciprocates with a kiss. Following the performance, Quinn reconciles with her mother, who invites her to move back home before being rushed to the hospital to give birth to a healthy baby girl. Shelby decides to retire from Glee Club to instead adopt Quinn's baby and get a second chance at being a mother. Ultimately, New Directions are devastated to learn that they came in last place and that Vocal Adrenaline has been crowned the winner. A defeated Will seeks comfort in Emma, leading to the two sharing a kiss. But before New Directions is disbanded, Sue confesses to Will that she had become moved by the Glee Club's passion and had actually voted for them to win. And so she agrees to convince Principal Figgins to keep the Glee Club intact. In the end, New Directions celebrate their future together as one big dysfunctional found family. The members of the Glee Club might think a pitchy singing performance is bad, but that's nothing compared to the horrors of not securing your personal and private information online. I mean, just look at this redacted report showing what information data brokers could be collecting from you. I'm talking your name, age, address, even the private information of your family, neighbors, and associates, all being sold by data brokers to potential scammers, spammers, and stalkers. This is super scary stuff, and now that my wife and I have just had our first child, I want to be as proactive as possible in keeping my family's data secure. And that's where today's sponsor Aura comes in. Basically, if you've ever received a spam call or email, it's because a data broker has collected and sold your data. They can do this without your consent and profit billions of dollars selling your personal and private information to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. While they're legally required to remove your data if asked, they can make this process difficult, confusing, and exhausting. But Aura takes care of the entire process for you, not only ensuring your data is removed from these sites, but stays gone for good. Maybe you're already using some other digital security service or VPN, but without Aura, that's like locking the front door but leaving the back door unlocked. With just one app, Aura offers alerts if your personal information is found on the dark web, real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking, 24/7 identity theft monitoring, US-based around-the-clock support, plus a VPN, password manager, antivirus, and more. Plus, if anything ever does go wrong, Aura offers $5 million in identity theft insurance protection, and they've got US-based fraud experts available 24/7. So try Aura for free for 14 days at aura.com/recapandchill. In those 2 weeks, Aura will get to work scrubbing your personal information off of these data broker sites. I'm not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Thanks to Aura for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the recap. In season 2 of Glee, New Directions try their best to move on from their loss and set their sights on winning the next regionals competition. To increase their popularity, they recruit the popular new student Sam Evans, though he is concerned that he will be labeled an outcast similar to the other Glee Club members. Principal Figgins begins taking money from the Glee Club and the Cheerios to bolster their football budget, then hires Shannon Beast as the new coach. This prompts the rivals Will Schuester and Sylvester to team up in the hopes of taking Beast down. Ultimately, Will takes a liking to Beast and calls off his war, earning Sue's ire once again. Will also earns the ire of Emma's boyfriend Carl after making it his mission to win back Emma's heart. Meanwhile, Bert and Carol get married, officially making Finn and Kurt stepbrothers. At McKinley High, Kurt struggles with incessant bullying from Dave Karofsky. Kurt then pays a visit to the private school Dalton Academy to check out the Warblers Glee Club, New Direction's main competition in the upcoming sectionals. There, Kurt meets Blaine Anderson, the leader of the Warblers, who encourages Kurt to stand up for himself and be confident in his sexuality. When Kurt confronts Karofsky, the bully shockingly kisses him, but later denies that this happened due to his own repressed homosexuality and threatens to kill Kurt if he reveals his secret. When McKinley High refuses to act, Bert and Carol use their honeymoon funds to instead enroll Kurt at Dalton Academy, which has a strict no bullying policy. There, he and Blaine begin to date and fall in love. Finn is now happily dating Rachel, and upon noticing his grilled cheese sandwich resembles Jesus, he begins praying to the grilled cheeses to help him get reinstated as the high school's quarterback. Rachel grows concerned that Finn's return to the football team will boost his popularity and ruin their relationship. When Rachel discovers that Finn had sex with Santana the previous year, despite claiming to be a virgin, she pettily kisses Puck for revenge, leading to Finn breaking up with her. Just as Artie begins a burgeoning relationship with Tina, he is left heartbroken when she breaks up with him to date Mike Chang. Quinn's popularity at school makes a turnaround when she's accepted by Sue to rejoin the Cheerios and starts dating Sam. Best friends Santana and Brittany share a kiss, but Santana is worried of ruining their friendship and scared of coming out as gay. Feeling spurned, Brittany sleeps with Artie as a rebound. Puck is arrested for theft and forced into doing community service while on probation. During this time, he befriends Artie and helps him begin to officially date Brittany. Puck also begins to date Lauren, Kurt's replacement in the Glee Club, but starts to feel self-conscious of the relationship, ruining his bad boy persona. At sectionals, Kurt joins the Warblers to compete against all of his friends from New Directions. Ultimately, the two clubs tie and both earn their spots to advance to regionals. When Will goes to celebrate this victory with Emma, he is shocked to discover that she has hastily married her boyfriend Carl in Vegas. Sue begins to struggle from losing her passion for cheerleading, which is only made worse upon the Cheerios losing their own regionals competition for the first time in years. Sue is then further humiliated by being named Loser of the Year by Katie Couric on live television. And to even further fuel Sue's rage, the underperforming Cheerios have their budget slashed to accommodate the more popular Glee Club. All of this sends Sue into an emotional spiral, and Emma suggests that she take part in the Glee Club to lift her spirits. Although this helps Sue regain her confidence, it also reignites her toxic competitiveness, leading her to take a job as the coach for New Directions regionals rivals Oral Intensity. Substitute teacher Holly Holiday arrives at McKinley High to teach a sex education education class, inspiring the members of New Directions to sing more sexually explicit songs. This worries Emma, who is the advisor of the school's celibacy club. Emma's new husband Carl insists that they meet with Holly for counseling, where they reveal that despite being married for several months, they have yet to consummate their marriage. Holly helps Emma realize that her true love is for Will, causing Carl to seek an annulment as she finally begins to date Mr. Shu. Quinn breaks up with Sam to rekindle her old romance with the newly single Finn. In turn, Sam starts dating Santana, causing further friction in the friendship and burgeoning love between Santana and Brittany. As New Directions prepares for regionals, Rachel takes it upon herself to write an original song for the Glee Club to perform. At the competition, New Directions faces off against Kurt, Blaine, and the Warblers, as well as Sue's rival club, Oral Intensity. Rachel's original song about wanting to reconcile with Finn, and Will's original song about his team of underdogs, ultimately lead to New Directions being crowned regionals champions, earning the club redemption for their loss the year prior. A bitter Sue becomes further incensed against Will and the Glee Club, leading her to form the League of Doom to take New Directions down. This league includes Will's ex-wife Terry, disgraced former Glee Club director Sandy Ryerson, and Vocal Adrenaline's new coach Dustin Goolsby. Meanwhile, Santana plots to become elected prom queen over Quinn to convince Brittany to break up with Artie and be with her. When Santana discovers that Karofsky is secretly gay, she forces him to help her create an anti-bullying club at the school in the hopes of ensuring Kurt's return from Dalton Academy and increasing her own popularity to be crowned prom queen. Ultimately, Kurt agrees to return to McKinley, where Karofsky gives a genuine and remorseful apology. Artie confronts Brittany, claiming that she is emotionally cheating on him with Santana, leading to the pair breaking up. At the prom, the couples Kurt and Blaine, Finn and Quinn, Tina and Mike, and Puck and Lauren all go together as dates, while the single Rachel, Sam, and Mercedes accompany each other as friends. Ultimately, despite Quinn and Santana both campaigning for prom queen, Karofsky is elected king, and Kurt is elected as his queen as part of a practical joke. Brittany comforts the disappointed Santana, encouraging her to accept herself and her sexuality. Despite being elected as a joke, Kurt chooses to embrace his status as prom queen and encourages Karofsky to use this moment to come out to the school, but the former bully refuses and flees. As the school year comes to a close, Will prepares New Directions for their performance in the upcoming Nationals competition. He hires Jesse St. James to help coach the Glee Club to victory, who in turn apologizes to Rachel for his previous callous behavior toward her. Finn breaks up with Quinn to reconcile with Rachel, but is devastated to find her instead kissing Jesse. When Sue's sister dies and the Glee Club rallies around her for support, she finally decides to put her antagonism toward New Directions to rest, affirming to Will that he is a good friend and wishing him luck at Nationals. As the season comes to a close, New Directions travels to New York City for the Nationals competition. April offers Will to join her Broadway musical, which would fulfill his lifelong dream, but ultimately Will realizes that his heart now wants to remain with New Directions and lead them to victory. Unfortunately, Rachel decides that she loves New York City and wants to move there for college to pursue her own Broadway dreams, even if it means leaving her friends behind. The New Directions Nationals performance ends with Finn and Rachel sharing a romantic kiss on stage, much to the jealous ire of Jesse. Unfortunately, this grand romantic gesture causes them to fail to reach the top 10, which Jesse blames solely on the kiss. Despite this loss, the Glee Club returns to McKinley High inspired to win Nationals the next year. Finn and Rachel profess their love for each other, with Finn acknowledging that despite their potentially diverging futures, they still have their final year of high school to be together. In Season 3 of Glee, many changes have occurred at McKinley High during the summer break. Will and Emma are still happily dating, the school bully Karofsky has transferred schools after being outed as gay, and Sam has moved away with his family. Finn is now a high school senior struggling to figure out what he wants to do with his life, while his girlfriend Rachel and stepbrother Kurt both applied to attend college at the New York Academy of Dramatic Arts. Mike Chang is pressured by his father to become a doctor and is in turn disowned when he professes his own desire to become a dancer. Quinn has completely reinvented herself, quitting both New Directions and Cheerios, dyeing her hair pink, and joining a group of outcasts known as the Skanks. While running the Cheerio squad, Sylvester also decides to run for Congress on a platform of cutting funding to arts programs in schools. Sue names Santana and Becky as co-captains of the Cheerios and enlists their help in her renewed desire to bring down the Glee Club. In response, Will kicks Santana out of New Directions. Bert decides to run for Congress against Sue, wanting to support the arts and his son Kurt, ultimately leading to his victory. As Will prepares his Glee Club to attempt to win nationals, he must also fill the void of their missing members. Kurt convinces his boyfriend Blaine to transfer to McKinley High to join New Directions, while Will holds auditions for other students. One of those auditioners is Sugar Mata, who is turned down due to her pitchiness. This enrages her entitled and wealthy parents, who pay to fund an all-girls Glee Club at McKinley High, known as the Trouble Tones and coached by Shelby Corcoran. The return of Shelby inspires Quinn and Puck to attempt to spend time with their daughter Beth, but Shelby refuses out of concern for Quinn's new bad girl behavior. And so Quinn pretends to clean up her act and rejoin New Directions in an effort to fight for full custody of Beth. Artie directs a school production of West Side Story, which leads to way more drama than he anticipated. Kurt is disappointed when he isn't cast in the lead role due to being too feminine, though Blaine is cast instead. When Mercedes loses the female lead to Rachel after a history of being passed over for solos in Glee Club, she decides to quit New Directions to instead join Shelby's Trouble Tones. Mercedes convinces Santana and Brittany to also join the Trouble Tones, and the pair begin to happily date in secret. As Santana grows more antagonistic toward New Directions following her switch to the Trouble Tones, Finn blames her actions of tearing down others as a mask for her own lack of self-confidence in herself and her closeted sexuality. Someone overhears this rebuke and publicly outs Santana, leaving her furious with Finn. Finn helps rally the rival New Directions and Trouble Tones clubs to support Santana through her emotional turmoil, allowing her to finally show her love for Brittany publicly. When Kurt decides to run for class president against Brittany, his friend Rachel grows concerned that he has no chance of winning, and so she cheats by creating fake ballots. This results in Kurt being disqualified, Brittany being elected class president, and Rachel being suspended from Glee Club on the eve of New Directions sectionals performance. Needing a new member to fill out their roster or be forced to withdraw from sectionals, Rachel and Finn track down Sam in the hopes of convincing him to return to McKinley. They discover that Sam has become a stripper to help his family pay their bills, but they support him in his return to New Directions. Back at school, Sam professes his love for Mercedes, vowing to win her over despite her being in a relationship with a football player named Shane. Puck becomes torn between his loyalties to New Directions and his desire to spend time with his daughter Beth, whose adoptive mother is the rival Glee Club coach Shelby. As Puck and Shelby develop a bond, they wind up sleeping together. When Quinn finds out about this act, she plots to expose the affair to ruin Shelby and win back custody of Beth. Rachel convinces Quinn to reconsider what is best for her daughter, leading to Quinn allowing Shelby to simply resign after sectionals and retain full custody of Beth. At sectionals, New Directions give an impassioned performance that secures them the victory. Mike's father is so moved that he finally gives his blessing for his son to pursue a professional dancing career. As Shelby keeps her word to Quinn and resigns, the Trouble Tones are disbanded, leading to Mercedes, Santana, Brittany, and even Sugar rejoining New Directions. When Coach Beast finds love with college football recruiter Cooter Minkins, leading to a quick marriage, Emma begins to wonder if Will ever intends to propose to her. Realizing Emma's desires, Will tasks the Glee Club and synchronized swimming team with helping him stage the perfect proposal, which Emma happily accepts. Inspired by this, Finn proposes to Rachel, with the high school sweethearts announcing their plans to marry the day after regionals, despite skepticism from their families. The new lead singer of the Warblers, Sebastian Smythe, confidently tries to woo Blaine for himself. When Blaine turns him down, Sebastian pettily stokes the rivalry between New Directions and the Warblers, who are set to face off again at regionals. When Sebastian tries to throw a rock salt lace slushie in Kurt's face, Blaine intervenes, scratching his cornea in in the process. At regionals, New Directions victoriously defeat the Warblers and the villainous Sebastian, earning their place at the Nationals competition. Following their victory, Rachel and Finn hold their wedding ceremony, though while Quinn is on the way to be a bridesmaid, she gets into a car accident. Rachel and Finn postpone their wedding while Quinn is left in a wheelchair and faced with a slow recovery to ever walk again. Quinn finds support in the new student Joe, and she convinces him to join New Directions. Elsewhere, Sue celebrates becoming pregnant by a mystery celebrity sperm donor, though becomes enraged when Principal Figgins names synchronized swimming coach Roz Washington as co-coach of the Cheerios. Furious over this, Sue strikes a deal to regain sole control of the cheerleading squad in return for helping New Directions win the Nationals championship. And so, Sue and Will become unlikely partners to lead the Glee Club to victory, though the pair constantly clash over their extremely different coaching styles. To win Nationals, New Directions will have to defeat all of the best show choir teams from across the country, including their rivals Vocal Adrenaline, who are now being coached by Jesse St. James. While everyone else dreams about their futures, Puck fails the test that could prevent him from even graduating high school. He seeks comfort in Coach Beast, who reveals that her new husband Cooter has been abusing her. Puck helps Beast find the inner strength to leave her abusive marriage, while Beast arranges for Puck to retake the test. Rachel and Kurt are officially asked to audition for the New York Academy of Dramatic Arts. Finn declares his intentions to join Rachel in New York to pursue his own acting career. Unfortunately, although Kurt impresses during his audition, Rachel disappoints in hers. Tina helps convince the Dean of Admissions, Carmen Thibodeau, to attend New Directions Nationals performance to give Rachel another chance at proving her talent. At senior prom, Quinn tries to use her new disability to gain sympathy and become elected prom queen. When Finn is elected prom king, Quinn instead decides to help Rachel be elected queen so that the couple can celebrate their victory together. In turn, all of Quinn's friends rally around her as she walks for the first time since her accident. Before New Directions Nationals performance, a spiteful Jesse tries to get in Rachel's head by taunting her over her failed college audition. But Rachel refuses to let this deter her, leading her Glee Club in a powerful and moving performance. The inspired and remorseful Jesse seeks out Carmen in the audience to recommend admitting Rachel to the Academy of Dramatic Arts. Before Vocal Adrenaline performs, their lead vocalist Unique begins to feel overwhelmed by the pressure of having her trans identity used as a prop to garner more attention. Kurt and Mercedes encourage her to ignore what anyone else thinks and to embrace her uniqueness. In the end, Unique is named the MVP of Nationals, while New Directions are crowned the overall winners. New Directions ecstatically return to McKinley High as champions. In the aftermath of their victory, Sue regains sole control of the Cheerios, and Will is crowned Teacher of the Year, after which he and Emma finally have sex for the first time. As the season comes to a close, the graduating seniors say their goodbyes to the Glee Club. As Kurt prepares to leave for New York, he shares an emotional farewell with his father Bert and boyfriend Blaine, who is only a junior and will thus remain at McKinley. Thanks to Sam's encouragement, Mercedes lands a record contract and moves to Los Angeles, while Mike moves to Chicago to join a ballet academy. Santana realizes that she no longer wants to pursue cheerleading, instead planning to go to New York with Rachel and Kurt to pursue her own dreams of stardom, while her girlfriend Brittany remains in high school for another year. Quinn helps Puck pass his final exam, earning his graduation. The former couple affirm that they will always be important parts of each other's lives due to their daughter Beth, and part ways to follow their separate paths on good terms. In the end, Rachel discovers that she has been accepted to the New York Academy of Dramatic Arts, but Kurt has shockingly been rejected, while Finn failed to get into acting school. Although Rachel affirms her intentions to take a year off to help her friends reapply, Finn instead calls off their wedding and encourages Rachel to go to New York City alone to follow her dreams, while he joins the army to follow in his late father's footsteps. In Season 4 of Glee, Will Schuester begins the new school year by welcoming back the returning members of Glee Club, including Blaine, Sam, Artie, Brittany, and Tina, while also bringing in Unique, who has transferred to McKinley High. Due to several of their star singers having graduated and departed New Directions, Will is left struggling to find suitable replacements. Eventually, Will meets the troublemaking Jake, who is naturally gifted but refuses to join the Glee Club. Upon discovering that Jake is actually the long-lost half-brother of Puck, Will stages an introduction audition for the two, after which Puck encourages his younger brother to officially join New Directions. Another new addition to New Directions is Marley Rose, a new student who is incessantly mocked due to her mother Millie being the school's lunch lady. Marley finds support in Jake and begins to develop romantic feelings for him, but is disappointed to discover that he has begun dating her biggest bully, Kitty Wilde. This upsets Jake, who breaks up with Kitty. Kitty is the new head cheerleader for the Cheerios and protege of Sylvester, who over the summer break has given birth to her daughter Robin. As Will tries to lead the newly reconfigured New Directions, he also begins to struggle to find his own motivation after having achieved his ultimate dream of winning the Nationals competition. Sue encourages him to find a new passion, leading to his decision to pursue government changes to improve arts education across the country. Will is ecstatic upon being accepted to join a blue ribbon government panel, but in turn he will have to move to Washington, D.C. for 6 months. Emma is reluctant to leave her own life behind, but ultimately gives her permission for Will to go on his own, with the fiancés making plans to finally marry upon Will's return. The only issue left to resolve before Will's departure is finding his replacement as coach for the Glee Club. Meanwhile, Kurt is encouraged by his father Bert and boyfriend Blaine to move to New York City to pursue his dreams, despite not yet being accepted to attend school at NYADA. And so Kurt bids his loved ones an emotional farewell before reuniting and moving in with Rachel. While there, Kurt gets a job working for Vogue, where his new boss Isabel Wright encourages him to pursue a career in fashion. Also moving to New York City is Santana, who breaks up with Brittany due to the distance straining their relationship. Rachel finds herself struggling to fit in at NYADA, where for the first time she feels self-conscious about her own talents in comparison to her similarly talented peers. In her dance class, she is treated cruelly by her cold and aggressive instructor Cassandra July, though finds comfort in her classmate Brody Weston, with whom she begins an affair. Unfortunately, that affair is discovered by Rachel's fiancé Finn, who arrives in New York to reunite with her after being discharged from the army. Blaine arrives to visit Kurt in New York, where he remorsefully confesses that during their time apart, he also cheated, leading to the pair breaking up. And so Finn and Blaine return to McKinley High together, single and heartbroken. To lift Finn's spirits, Artie asks him to co-direct the high school's production of Grease, bringing back fellow New Directions alums Mercedes and Mike Chang for additional support. Marley is cast as Sandy and Unique is cast as Rizzo, despite pushback from Sue due to being trans. As Finn defends Unique, he also insensitively calls Sue's daughter a slur. When none of the men from New Directions want to audition for the lead role of Danny, Finn is reminded of his own Glee Club origins, now filling the role of Mr. Shu to recruit the new struggling high school quarterback Ryder Lynn. This inspires Will to leave Finn in charge of the Glee Club as he finally departs for Washington. This infuriates Sue, bitter over Finn's insensitivity, leading her to reignite her rivalry with New Directions. As Finn assumes control of New Directions, he realizes that he isn't just responsible for the Glee Club singing, but also their interpersonal drama. Ryder and Jake both develop romantic feelings for Marley, leading to the pair forming a rivalry with each other. Ultimately, Finn helps the two set aside their differences and become genuine friends. Kitty develops her own interest in Ryder and in turn begins to body shame Marley out of petty jealousy. Meanwhile, Sebastian Smythe and the new captain of the Warblers, Hunter Clarington, steal New Directions Nationals trophy and try to convince Blaine to rejoin them now that Kurt is gone. Sam helps convince Blaine to stay at McKinley, and together they steal back the trophy. As the sectionals competition approaches, Finn brings in his old friends and fellow Glee Club alums, Quinn, Puck, Mike, Mercedes, and Santana, to help mentor the new members of New Directions. Unfortunately, during their sectionals performance, Marley collapses on stage due to the toxic and unhealthy habits that Kitty has instilled in her. This leads to New Directions' disqualification from sectionals, ensuring the Warblers' victory. Following this devastating loss, New Directions show choir season is over, and the members of the Glee Club all disband to focus on other interests. But Finn gets a pep talk from his ex Rachel, inspiring him to reunite the Glee Club around their passion for music. As Sam begins dating Brittany, he also looks into the Warblers' victory, discovering that their captain Hunter had encouraged his club to take steroids. With this cheating scandal exposed, the Warblers are disqualified, and New Directions earn their spot in the upcoming regionals competition. Meanwhile, in New York, Kurt auditions once again for NYADA, leading him to finally earning his acceptance. While attending school with Rachel, Kurt also develops feelings for his classmate Adam. When Rachel decides to move in with her new boyfriend Brody, Finn begins to emotionally spiral. And so as he comforts Emma during her wedding planning, Finn kisses her, much to his shame and Emma's shock. Will then returns from Washington, D.C. to resume leadership of the Glee Club and finally marry Emma. All of the former members of New Directions return to celebrate the wedding, and with love in the air, Quinn and Santana get drunk and sleep together. Artie begins dating Emma's wheelchair-bound niece Betty, and Rachel and Kurt briefly reconcile with their exes, Finn and Blaine, before returning to New York City to be with their new boyfriends. Unfortunately, before officially tying the knot, Emma becomes overwhelmed by her anxiety over her and Will's strained long-distance relationship, causing her to abandon him at the altar. To make matters worse, a heartbroken Will becomes enraged upon learning that Finn had kissed Emma during his absence. Following this betrayal, Finn decides to go to college alongside his old friend Puck. Blaine asks Bert's permission to propose to Kurt, but Bert asserts that the boys are too young to get married. Artie looks forward to his future after graduating and excitedly earns a scholarship to film school in New York City. Brittany is shockingly discovered to be a mathematical genius by MIT, leading her to develop a massive ego. She quits the Cheerios, breaks up with Sam, and refuses to perform with New Directions at regionals unless she is given all of the solos. Sam calls on Santana to help talk sense into Brittany, who agrees to perform at regionals, after which she will depart to attend MIT. When Becky brings a gun to school, Sue covers for her and is in turn fired, being replaced as head coach of the Cheerios by Roz Washington. Ultimately, Becky feels guilty for her actions and confesses the truth to Principal Figgins. Back in New York City, Santana discovers that Rachel's boyfriend Brody secretly works as a gigolo to help pay his tuition. In turn, Rachel breaks up with Brody and puts all of her focus in landing the lead role in the Broadway revival of the musical Funny Girl. During her first audition, Rachel is inspired by Finn to sing their first New Directions duet, Don't Stop Believing. This performance earns Rachel an official callback, after which Cassandra reveals that her bullying tactics were all just to motivate her to greatness, and that she is proud of how far Rachel has come. As the regionals competition approaches, Marley begins writing an original song for New Directions to perform, all the while continuing her relationship with Jake. The lovesick writer finds support from an online relationship with a mystery girl named Katie, though he eventually discovers that he has been catfished by Unique. Ryder is furious over this trick, but Unique affirms her own crush on Ryder, and knowing that he would never like her back in the same way. As the season comes to a close, Will chooses to reconcile with Finn and work together to lead New Directions to regionals victory. To further support the Glee Club, Mercedes, Mike, and Kurt arrive to offer their own coaching advice. In the end, after a rousing performance of Marley's original song, New Directions are crowned the winners of the regionals competition. As everyone celebrates, Emma arrives with an officiant, declaring her desire to marry Will on the spot, with the entire Glee Club there to witness the romantic moment. Season 5 of Glee continues the school year, with the senior students of New Directions contemplating life after graduation. Following Becky's confession, Sue is allowed to return to McKinley High, where she spitefully plants pornography in Figgins' office to oust him and take the principal job for herself. With her newfound power, Sue informs Will and Roz that New Directions and the Cheerios must win their nationals competitions, or they will both be fired as head coaches. Sue then appoints a bully named Bree as the new head cheerleader of the Cheerios, and encourages her to antagonize the Glee Club. Despite Bert's initial hesitance, he ultimately helps Blaine romantically propose to Kurt in front of all of their closest family and friends. And in other happy news, Rachel ecstatically learns that she has officially been cast as the lead in Funny Girl. Unfortunately, everyone then learns of the sudden and tragic death of Finn. As current and former members of New Directions gather together to grieve, Kurt and Bert help comfort Finn's mother, Carol. Puck decides to enlist in the Air Force to honor the memory of his friend, while Sue and Santana lament their past cruelty toward Finn without ever getting to fully reconcile and acknowledge their admiration for him. Will comforts a heartbroken Rachel, who confesses that despite having been broken up with Finn, she always imagined them reconciling and spending the rest of their lives together. Will then finds himself breaking down, comforted by Emma, as he cries into Finn's cherished Letterman jacket. Following this mourning period, everyone tries to move on with their lives. At McKinley High, Will tries to prepare New Directions for the Nationals performance against their new rivals, Throat Explosion, all while the members of the Glee Club struggle with their own interpersonal dramas. As Jake's relationship with Marley begins to strain, he cheats on her with Bree. After confessing this to Marley, she breaks up with him. Ryder takes this opportunity to ask Marley out, but she instead decides to remain single to focus on her passion for songwriting. songwriting. The newly single Jake becomes a womanizer in an effort to make Marley jealous, but after a brief pregnancy scare with Bree, he resolves to better himself, similar to his older brother Puck, to not end up like his father. In New York, Blaine auditions for Naya while Sam announces his dreams of moving to the city alongside his friends to pursue a modeling career. Kurt starts a band called Pamela Lansbury, recruiting Rachel Santana, Santana's new girlfriend Danny, and the confidently edgy Starchild. As Kurt grows closer to Starchild, Blaine begins to grow jealous. Meanwhile, Santana becomes jealous of Rachel's Broadway success and copies her singing and dancing style to become her official understudy for Funny Girl. Rachel admonishes Santana, moving out of their shared loft and ending their friendship. Kurt grows frustrated by the girls' newfound rivalry interfering with his band, and so he kicks them out to form a trio with Danny and Starchild called 1-3 Hill. Back at McKinley, as Will prepares to leave for nationals, Emma happily announces that she is pregnant. With this joyous news, Will arrives with New Directions in Los Angeles for the nationals competition, where the group are immediately confronted by Jean-Baptiste, the leader of their new Glee Club rival, Throat Explosion. While in LA, Ryder and Jake decide to band together to seek the aid of the pop star Mercedes to help Marley's songwriting career. Bert and Carol then arrive in LA, affirming that Finn would want them to witness the Glee Club's performance. New Directions sing a medley of Finn's favorite songs, though ultimately they come in second place to Throat Explosion. Despite this, Carol affirms that the performance has helped her grieve her son's death, and that Finn will continue to live on through their music. Unfortunately, due to budget cuts, Sue then informs Will that due to his failure to win nationals, she is now forced to keep to her threat and permanently disband the Glee Club. Rachel, Kurt, Santana, Brittany, Quinn, Puck, Mercedes, and Mike all return to McKinley High to take part in a final celebration of New Directions history. While there, Quinn and Puck reconcile their high school romance, while Brittany rekindles her old romance with Santana and helps her see that Broadway was never her true dream, helping Santana give it up and reconcile with Rachel. In the end, the members of New Directions sing one final performance of Don't Stop Believing, while affirming to Will how big of an impact he has had on all of their lives. And with that, the Glee Club is officially disbanded as the school year comes to an end. Artie, Sam, and Blaine all graduate high school together with plans of moving to New York to join their friends and following their dreams, while Tina graduates and attends Brown University, and Brittany graduates and attends MIT. Sue then reveals to Will that she believes he should still follow his own musical passions, having secured him an interview to become the new head coach of Vocal Adrenaline. A few months later, the graduates of McKinley High are all pursuing their dreams. Mercedes moves to New York City to reunite with her friends and begins work on her new album. Sam lands his first modeling job and moves in with Mercedes, leading to the pair rekindling their high school romance. Mercedes grows concerned of what her fans would think of her dating a white man, but ultimately chooses to ignore the potential hate to pursue their love. Artie first struggles with acclimating to the city while in his wheelchair, but eventually begins to thrive, even catching chlamydia due to his sexual exploits. Blaine and Kurt meet a legendary socialite named June Dalloway who has a history of supporting the arts. She takes an interest in Blaine and vows to make him a star, but insists that he must break up with Kurt to achieve his dreams. Instead, during a performance showcase, Blaine invites Kurt on stage with him and publicly professes his love, which ultimately wins June's respect. Rachel's rehearsal commitments to Funny Girl begin to interfere with her work at NIADA, leading to her ultimately dropping out of school. On the opening night of Funny Girl, Will Schuester and Sylvester arrive to show their support for Rachel. Unfortunately, Sue is actually there to prove her disdain for New York City and Broadway, while Will is forced to miss the performance when Emma goes into labor. In the end, Rachel's Broadway debut is a massive success met with critical acclaim. Will then calls to congratulate her while also announcing that his newborn son is named Daniel Finn Schuester. Following her newfound fame, Rachel attempts to branch out, calling in sick to Funny Girl to instead fly to LA for a television show audition. This backfires on Rachel as she fails to win the television role and is threatened to be fired from Funny Girl if she ever misses another performance. As the season comes to a close, Rachel is shocked to discover that despite her failed audition, the television executives were so impressed by her that they've sent a writer to develop an original project based on Rachel's life for her to star in. Meanwhile, Mercedes departs for a concert tour where Brittany will join her as a backup dancer. As she departs, she breaks up with Sam. not wanting their relationship to prevent them from following their dreams. Feeling lonely in New York City, Sam decides to quit his burgeoning modeling career and return to McKinley High, where he reminisces about the good old days when the Glee Club was still active. In season 6, several months have passed and the students of McKinley High, old and new, are adjusting to massive changes in their lives. Sue still reigns as principal, while Sam is now the assistant football coach, working alongside Coach Beast, who has come out as trans. Meanwhile, Will Schuester is still serving as the head coach of Vocal Adrenaline, though struggling to reform its members, including leader Clint, from their antagonistic ways. In New York, the television series based on Rachel's life, known as That's So Rachel, has embarrassingly been canceled after only airing a single episode. As Rachel returns home to her parents, feeling like a failure, she discovers that her dads are divorcing and selling her childhood home. Seeking a return to her musical roots, Rachel convinces school superintendent Bob Harris to reinstate New Directions, installing herself as its new head coach. Meanwhile, Kurt breaks up with Blaine, sending him into a spiraling depression that causes him to flunk out of Naya. In turn, Blaine too returns home, taking a job as the head coach of his old Glee club, the Warblers. A remorseful Kurt arrives to win Blaine back, only to shockingly discover that his ex-fiancée is now dating his former bully Karofsky. Rachel convinces Kurt to stay at McKinley and join her as the co-head of New Directions. Rachel and Kurt bring in many of their old friends to help recruit new members to the Glee Club, including the lonely new student Roderick, the twin siblings Madison and Mason, the gay football player Spencer, and Spencer's first ever boyfriend Alistair. Elsewhere, Dalton Academy accepts their first female student, Jane Hayward, who wants to join the Warblers. Although Blaine is impressed by her, the all-male members of the team rebuke her, and so Jane transfers to McKinley High to join New Directions. Blaine believes that Rachel and Kurt purposely stole one of his singers, reigniting the rivalry between New Directions and the Warblers. Despite this, New Directions forges a truce with Vocal Adrenaline, as Rachel still seeks out advice from her old mentor Will. But it's not just rival Glee clubs that Rachel and Kurt must contend with, as Sylvester continues her quest to destroy New Directions by any means necessary. Sue hypnotizes Sam to seduce Rachel, leading her to develop genuine feelings for him. Sue also hypnotizes Sam to steal Will's mail and blame Rachel upon being caught. Thinking that Rachel has broken their truce, Will becomes determined to have Vocal Adrenaline crush New Directions at invitationals. Fortunately, Will and Rachel discover Sue's meddling and reconcile. No longer hypnotized, Sam realizes that his romantic feelings for Rachel are real, and his ex Mercedes encourages him to pursue a relationship. When Rachel gets the opportunity to audition for a new musical, she doubts herself due to her past failures, but Sam encourages her to believe in herself, leading to the pair sharing a kiss. Despite Sue's hatred toward Will and Rachel, she does become obsessed with salvaging the relationship of Kurt and Blaine. She traps them in an elevator and taunts them with a puppet, forcing the former lovers to kiss. Thanks in some part to Sue's prodding, Kurt and Blaine realize their continued love for each other and finally reconcile. Meanwhile, Santana and Brittany happily get engaged. Brittany also discovers that her unexpected intellect is due to the fact that her biological father is Stephen Hawking. Santana refuses to allow Sue to attend her wedding due to the past cruelty suffered at the hands of her former cheerleading coach, but a repentant Sue helps convince Santana's prejudiced grandmother to accept Santana and Brittany's love for each other, in turn leading to Santana allowing Sue to attend the wedding. Before the ceremony, Santana and Brittany reveal that Kurt and Blaine's love for each other inspired their own romance, and convinced them to also get married in a joint ceremony officiated by Kurt's father Bert. As everyone celebrates, Tina proposes to McHale, who turns her down. And so Tina and Artie vow that if neither are married by the time they turn 30 years old, they will marry each other. Meanwhile, Vocal Adrenaline and its lead singer Clint continue their antagonistic rivalry against New Directions, despite Will trying to reform them. When Clint leads his team in vandalizing Beast's car, Will attempts to teach his students a lesson by bringing them to a performance of Unique and an all-trans choir, accepting Beast into their ranks, proving the power of art and music as an act of self-expression expression, joy, and acceptance. When Clint rebukes Will's message, Mr. Schu decides to quit his job as Vocal Adrenaline's coach and instead volunteer to help Rachel and Kurt coach New Directions once again. Sue grows frustrated by Will's return, having gone out of her way to help him secure the Vocal Adrenaline coaching job, which he quickly ruined. Sue also develops a crush on Superintendent Harris, hoping he can help her win Principal of the Year. Harris pulls strings to have his young, high-maintenance nephew Myron skip middle school to attend McKinley High and join New Directions, much to the annoyance of Sue and Will. When a spiteful Becky exposes Sue's years of plotting to ruin the Glee Club, a voodoo doll to take out her rage against Myron, and even evidence of a secret past doing porn, the superintendent fires Sue. Sue is then publicly exposed as a liar and abuser on national television, causing everyone to turn their backs on her, all except for Will Schuester and Coach Beast, who offer their support despite Sue's past transgressions toward them. But despite this, Sue continues her path for petty vengeance, taking the job as coach of Vocal Adrenaline in the hopes of defeating New Directions once and for all. Superintendent Harris then announces his intentions of removing all arts programs, including Glee Club, from McKinley High if New Directions fails to win the regionals competition. As the pivotal sectionals competition draws near, Dalton Academy burns down, leading to Will helping the Warblers get admitted to McKinley High and join New Directions. Football star Spencer injures his ankle while practicing dances for the competition, but insists on continuing his participation in the performance, despite the risk of permanent damage to his ankle. As Sue escalates her rivalry with the Glee Club, including setting off glitter bombs and blowing up Will's car, Will takes revenge by shaving Sue bald. After New Directions defeat Vocal Adrenaline to win the sectionals competition, Sue reveals that she intentionally provoked the Glee Club and sabotaged Vocal Adrenaline to inspire New Directions to win, as thanks for Will being one of the only people to unconditionally support her, even at her lowest. As Rachel attempts to be readmitted to Naya, she discovers that she has in fact been cast in the musical she auditioned for, but had lost hope in getting. The musical also stars her ex-boyfriend and sometimes rival Jesse St. James. Ultimately, Sam convinces Rachel not to make the same mistake she made before, returning to Naya to complete her education before pursuing her Broadway dreams. As the series comes to a close, New Directions not only win the regionals competition, but also go on to win the nationals competition, making them the greatest Glee Club in the country. Following this success, Superintendent Harris announces his plan to turn McKinley High into a performing arts school, naming Will Schuester its principal, whose first act is hiring Sam as the new coach of New Directions. 5 years later, Sue has decided to pursue her interest in politics, first being elected Vice President of the United States under Jeb Bush before announcing her plans to run for president. Artie and Tina are now dating, Mercedes returns from being Beyonce's opening act on a world tour, while Rachel is now married to Jesse St. James and pregnant as the surrogate for Kurt and Blaine's child. Rachel then wins a Tony Award for her most recent Broadway performance, thanking Will in her acceptance speech for all that he has imparted on her life. In the end, Vice President Sue invites all of the former Glee Club members to return to McKinley High, where she renames the auditorium to honor Finn Hudson, and everyone celebrates with one final song together.